let's start off with Canada's squad announcement as Jesse Marsh named his 23-man side that will try to win Canada's first trophy since the year 2000. The big dogs are all available. Some names on that list that you'll maybe raise your eyebrows to a little bit, considering some fitness or injury issues within the side. But this is a group that Jesse Marsh called the strongest squad that Canada has ever been able to name. I mean, it's a big claim. Let's start off with the names in this side. AGR, any names surprise you, whether they're on the list or maybe they were left off?
Yeah, I'll go for someone on the list. I said Jamie Knight-Lebel was a bit of a surprise just to see him included. Just, this is a chance to win a trophy. I was maybe expecting a little more experience, a little more, guys that have been around, but I think this is a big vote of confidence from Marsh. Knight-Lebel looked fantastic in November. This is deserved. He's a young kid putting in some hard work in League Two, but it is still a bit of a surprise, but it shows where Jesse Marsh rates Knight-Lebel and how he rates Kamal Miller. And that's going to be something to monitor going forward. Is this something we see a little more permanently? Otherwise, the injuries were a big surprise. Larea, Chouanière, Schaffelberg all struggling with injuries, but Marsh talked a lot about familiarity and having those guys who know his system. It's a short camp. He's going to need that across the week.
I'm going to come straight back to you, AGR, because Kamal Miller looks like the biggest loser in terms of the Marsh hire. Was a key player within the men's national team under John Herdman. That simply hasn't been the case under Jesse Marsh. We know Jesse wants to play, on the front foot, pressing, aggressive, defending. Does he just not fit that bill? What do you make of that? Because he was such a key contributor for quite a long time.
Yeah, and the big surprise was he was 24, 25 when he started at the World Cup, and now he's 27. He should be in his prime for a center back. But there's just something that doesn't quite fit. I mean, we've known that with Kamal Miller, he plays at his best in a 3. The switch to a 4 was always going to be a bit harder for him to fit in as one of the 2 center backs. And I think the big thing too, he's not doing enough at the club level to maybe make more of an argument. I think that's probably the biggest reason why he's on the outside looking in right now. Because Marsh did give him a look in November. He had the game with the bloody headband where he started to show a bit of that Kamal Miller we're used to seeing. But other than that, we haven't seen enough of that at Portland. And I think for Jesse Marsh, when you got guys like Knight-Lebel knocking down the door, someone like Kyle Hebert wasn't included, he could have very well earned a shout. It's hard to justify bring him in.
Interesting. I mean, with Kamal, we thought he would make a move overseas, didn't transpire, to Miami, to Portland, and looks like a place where there's a little bit of instability, which will affect a player's club career. And the knock-on effect is national team inclusion or lack thereof. What about you, Jordan, in terms of inclusions, exclusions? What do you make of this 23-man squad?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about the exclusions because I think that goes to the point, or probably Marsh's point, about the best squad, because I think it's the players that he had to leave home. Like, in what world do you have Saliba, Miller, Jaden Nelson, and Theo Bair all just not getting into camp, right? And then, so for me, this is the time right now where you look at the squad, and maybe it is the strongest just off of a competition. I mean, probably the biggest omission when I look at it, I wouldn't say that he would start, but I just think he could be an option coming off the bench is Nathan Saliba. Like, Wheels, you talk about him and rave about him highly, and watching his game closely, I know he's only 21, but I think like the upside of his game and just being in a camp and being under Marsh's principles and methods for a little bit, I know it's a short window, but a guy like that, a talent like that, to leave him at home, this one's got a sting. Hopefully it motivates him to get back on the roster, but you think about how Canada plays and a 2-man midfield that has to run a lot of kilometers, but also just be able to skip by a guy and make things happen. A young player that comes to mind is Nathan Saliba. So I look at it, Theo Bair probably feels a bit hard done by as well, just because of his size, what he brings to Canada and coming off the bench. But now the pecking order, there's 2 players you probably put ahead of him. So it's tough right now. The competitions are high, but that's what you want to see going into a World Cup that you're about to host.
Just quickly on the Saliba note, yes, the MLS players are coming in very early, in the very early stages of their season, but Mathieu Chouanière has played 7 minutes in 2025. He's been out through injury. And even Marsh himself acknowledged on the call that Ismail Kone is just getting back to looking like himself again. I mean, that doesn't mean he's on, his top form right now. So the central midfield area will be one to watch. Same with up front. And you mentioned some of the selection, maybe Theo Bair not included. Taniolo Ashai hasn't scored a goal for club or country since July 17th of last summer. Jason Russell-Rose hit the ground running also for Columbus Crew to go along with Theo Bair, 3 and 5 out of the gate, and clearly comfortable just coming off the bench and being able to play that kind of role in the team. So maybe a little bit of a surprise there as well. But Jordan, you mentioned the two players up top, Promise David, Daniel Jefferson, brand new to the Canada setup. Which one of those two players do you think may have a bigger role for this 2-game window with the Nations League?
I just think when you play Mexico, are you going to sub both of them in? And if you sub both of them in, are they going to have substantial minutes? So I think Jesse Marsh is probably going to be in a world where it's going to be a tight game against Mexico, and you have to choose who fits the profile of the type. I mean, flip a coin, but for me, if I had to say it, I think Promise David comes in. It's hard to ignore that 6'5" frame and that power and the finesse that he brings, especially if you're going to play Mexico in a semifinal game in the Nations League. Like, you're going to want someone to replace Laird, who doesn't really play 90s anymore, not for Canada at least. But it's just the nature of the game. You kind of switch things up. You don't finish the game with the same 11 that you start with. You have guys that are going to go and contribute. But if I had to say, I think Promise David, I think what he brings is just something different. No one else can duplicate it. You can make the argument for Jefferson as well that no one really brings what he brings, but I just think that power, the way that he's able to pin defenders, run by them, run deep, I just think that if Marshall's going to create a player, a striker, it's probably Promise David.
Do you agree with that assessment, AGR?
100%. Look, I think it's exciting to bring in Daniel Jefferson, but he's a bet on the future. Like Jesse Marsh said it himself. He sees the potential. Right now, he still has work to do to get up to full fitness. It's been a strange last few years for him in terms of form, club situation, health situations. So this year's just been about getting fit, getting playing again. He's at a great spot in Bournemouth where he's going to develop. But there's still time to be had. Promise David is here right now. Fun fact, in the European Golden Shoe race, he's actually higher than Jonathan David. His goals in Estonia count in that, but he's actually higher in the entire European Golden Shoe race. He's been in insane form this year. He's pretty much one of, if not the hottest striker outside the top 5 leagues. Like, that's a guy you can drop in and you just feel he's going to score, because every time Saint Gilloise play him, be it Europa League, be it in their big league games, he's scoring goals. And I mean, Jordan mentioned it with the size. He can also move for a big man. Like, he's quick. And I think just having that pace along with that size, it's going to be quite something.
Some of those goals have been penalties as well. So he's a penalty taker, which certainly helps the goal total. I just need to see him with Canada, right? Like, how this all fits. Like, this team is meticulously built in the way that they play, and part of their strength is how they play the system really well together. So it does come with a little bit of an unknown, but I'll roll with you guys on that one. I agree that Promise David, just based upon form and form alone, would have to be ahead in the pecking order, at least where things stand right now. In terms of decisions that need to be made, Alex, for Jesse Marsh, what's going to be the most difficult decision in terms of who to play where in the 11?
Hey, you can look definitely anywhere across the front 6. I'm going to go with the wing. I just think you look right now, it's very thin. It's, Tejan Buchanan but hasn't been getting the minutes hoped with Villarreal in Spain. Jacob Schaffelberg hasn't played yet due to injury. Ali Ahmed looks in great form. I think you can comfortably expect him to start based on these things. But who starts alongside him? Are they going to be able to go 60? Then if you want to look at other options, Richie Larea, one of the next guys up, he's battling a bit of an injury. You could throw Nico Seeger there. Marsh kind of mentioned that how you could split have been playing him out wide. But he's not necessarily a natural winger. I guess there is always a nuclear option. You can go Alphonso Davies on the wing. I know Bayern's starting to do it a little more. He scored on the wing in the Champions League, but Jesse Marsh hasn't liked to do that. So I think the fact that he would even have to consider shows that the winger depth is a bit thin right now.
And then who would go in and play left back with no Larea, no Atakubi available? I fully agree with you. The wide areas seem to be the biggest question mark right now. Do you agree with that, or is there potentially another area that you're looking at, Jordan?
I agree with that, but I would also counter and probably say an issue that's keeping Jesse Marsh up at night, and he won't really know until the day before, is who's going to partner in the middle with Stephen Eustachio. Because I think this is not even a question of who is available, it's who he really trusts. Because with the one match, the semifinals against Mexico, you got to be disciplined. Two-man midfield. Is it Kone? Is it Chouanier? And I guess the history with them is with Kone, a player who still has heaps of potential, but got benched in the Copa just because maybe he wasn't up to snuff of how Marsh wanted to play, and then kind of regained his spot. But then you have a Mathieu Chouanier that's come in September when he played that, for me, a top match against the U.S. Was it the strongest U.S. team? No. But did he have one of the strongest performances for Canada in his time? Absolutely. And then you look at Suriname and the times that he's played and the set pieces and all that he's chipped away at. He's starting to earn coach's trust, Marsh's trust. So who does he gamble on? And I know with both of these players, you have Kone, who's maybe starting to feel like himself again. You already said it, Wheels. Mathieu Chouanier hasn't been playing a lot of minutes since he's made that move. Who's the player you gamble on in this game to get the job done? I think for me, you could flip a coin. You could go with either one, but who Marsh chooses is, it's completely up to him.
That's why the Saliba exclusion is a little bit surprising, because in terms of being able to cover ground and get up and press, I mean, it seems like Saliba is more of the profile that would have fit what this team requires for this tournament. We'll see on that. The debate will rage on. A week from today, it's Canada, it's Mexico at the Nations League in the semifinal, and you can watch right here on One Soccer. Also unveiled this week, Mauricio Pochettino, or as I like to call him, Mopo, unveiled his 23-man squad for the Nations League as the U.S. take on Panama. Some very good players in this U.S. team. Anthony Robinson, an outstanding player, to be wearing the captain's armband for Fulham. Good to see Tyler Adams, if you're a U.S. supporter, back playing fit with Bournemouth. He will change the way that this U.S. team looks, undoubtedly, with his inclusion. And Christian Pulisic, AC Milan have had an up and down campaign, probably more downs than ups, but Pulisic is being ever present in that AC Milan side. What do we make of this U.S. side? I'll start with you, Alex. Any surprises there? Any names that maybe catch you a little bit by surprise? I'm sure there's one. You reside in Vancouver. It's a real feel-good story with Brian White being included in this U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of read my mind there. This U.S. team's kind of stock. It's young, only two guys over 30, and one of them is 30, like super, super young team. But Brian White, this is overdue. I guess you could argue 2022, 2023 with how he's been scoring goals for the Whitecaps. He could have earned the look. He finally does. He's been excellent this season. It feels like he's somehow leveled up, and he's not relying as much on Ryan Gauld as he would have in the past, which I think is maybe a big reason why Pochettino's looking at him, because that U.S. strike force, it's looking a bit weak. They've struggled over the years to find guys, and then finally Ricardo Pepi and Folarin Balogun start to look like they can be that guy. Then they both get injured. Josh Sargent's very unproven, so it's good that Brian White gets the shot. But there are a bunch of guys in Europe. You do wonder if Pochettino might have looked at him, but it is a vote of confidence to guys getting it done in MLS on a good team.
Yeah,
Wheels, you know this better than it.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Go ahead, Wheels. I was just gonna say, you know this better than anyone, right? Form's a huge thing. Like, it just isn't football. Chemistry's big, yeah, but form. Like, you'll take a player who just seems to find the back of the net and seems to have his moment than someone who maybe has potential, because these are must-win games. And I think for the U.S., with all the backlash they get when they don't win and when things don't pan out for them, you want to gamble on guys that are feeling good. So Brian White will get some substantial minutes. And when I say that, that's finishing a game, closing it out, but that's not 5. That's maybe 25, 30, enough for him to show what he's worth.
Number 9s, is it Josh Sargent? Is it Patrick Agyemang? Like, I put Brian White right up alongside those names, and we'll see, sure, especially on Brian White's form. He's hit the ground running this season, hasn't he? So the surprise inclusion for me was Tim Ream. How much longer is this going to go on for? I don't get it. Like, we saw them play last summer. Like, any time that the tempo gets picked up, it's just like Ream is a pace killer. Just and Alex said it with the team with plenty of legs. I don't understand that. Tim Ream has had a fine career, very good career, but it's got to be time to turn that page. And if he's playing against whether it's Panama, Canada, Mexico, I know where I'm going after. Anyways, I'll leave Timmy Boy alone here and move things forward. Nations League next week.